human influence was not the same across Iceland, and it varied over time in response to market interests, technology, and of course, natural catastrophes. Since the introduction of sheep by the Norse settlers, sheep farming has been the main provider of meat in Iceland, as well as other products like milk, wool, and skins. Shifts in the emphasis on the different products derived from sheep provide a deeper understanding of the history of sheep grazing in Iceland, from milk for subsistence farming in the early days, to wool for export, and finally meat for national markets and export. In the early days, and up to the late 18th century, sheep numbers were limited by access to food during winter. Diseases, adverse climatic conditions, and natural catastrophes also kept the numbers of sheep relatively low, fluctuating somewhere between 50 and 300,000 animals. By the early 19th century, technological progress, the import of winter food, and the use of fertilizers allowed the number of sheep to skyrocket. The number of sheep began to increase in the 1820s, when foreign markets opened up for sheep products. From 300,000 sheep in the early 1800s to nearly 600,000 sheep by 1900. The increased numbers of sheep exacerbated soil erosion rates, especially in the highlands, because of two main reasons. First, in the late 1800s, there was a colder period simultaneous to the increased grazing pressure. Second, there was a change in traditional land use. Traditionally, sheep females, the ewes, were grazed close to the farms because they had to be milked every day. In the second half of the 19th century, the interest shifted from milk or milk products to meat. The focus was now on production of lambs, so extensive summer grazing in the highlands became more common. Artificial fertilizer was introduced to Iceland in 1910. With improved technology in haymaking, the numbers of sheep were still on the increase throughout the 20th century, reaching a historical maximum of nearly 900,000 animals in 1977. This peak in sheep numbers led to overgrazing in many districts and grazing commons, particularly within the volcanic active zone and in the highlands. Sheep grazing became so extensive that nowadays it is hard to find an area that has not been impacted by sheep grazing. In the 1980s, the introduction of a livestock quota system reduced the number of sheep. Since then, sheep numbers have decreased, but they are still relatively high when compared to historical abundances. Also, by the time when sheep numbers were reduced, the ecosystems in many rangelands had already shifted to a severely degraded state, and the recovery, if any, has been very slow. Nowadays, and probably due to the lack of common understanding on the ecological consequences of grazing, areas with degraded and even collapsed ecosystems are still being grazed.
Should I put it?
Let's just do it again. I can reposition.
Oh. Okay, shall I put them again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I have to think about so funny. Okay, I'll start again. This is okay, that would be the second one. And now, let's see. Yeah, I need to restart all over.